Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the fourth episode, although only the third one that's going to be put on iTunes. That second one didn't go so well. I am happy to bring you the fourth episode on YouTube of the Alternate Football Podcast, covering everything that is not the NFL but professional football. Going to be talking this week about the Grey Cup that happened this past Thanksgiving Sunday, which Thanksgiving in America Sunday. It was fantastic. It was a great game. And also talking this week about the Alliance of American Football quarterback draft that's coming up tomorrow, Tuesday. If you get to this before, I'm going to be talking about my thoughts before, and then next week I'll probably talk about my thoughts after, like who picked up the best ones. But without further ado, let me just go ahead and get into the CFL Championship Grey Cup game. If you don't already know, I don't know if you're an American, you just don't follow the CFL as closely as the Canadians or I do. But the Calgary Stampeders wound up winning the game 27-16. It really wasn't all that close of a game. It was at least close enough to be interesting. Not quite as good as the last time these two teams played in the Grey Cup a couple years ago that went into an overtime game. Calgary was leading most of the game. I think Ottawa only took the lead once in the entire game. The field at the beginning of the game, since it was so cold, it was only 2 degrees Celsius, which is just above freezing. I don't know what that would be in Fahrenheit. I think it'd be like 34, 35 degrees Fahrenheit. So it wasn't snowing, but it was just so cold. And the AstroTurf in that stadium was slick as ice. Players were just sliding all over the place. They would catch a ball and they would slide like 10, 15 feet. It reminded me of an old Ice Bowl game or something. If you're a Packer fan in the NFL or any northern outdoor team, this is the type of league you probably would love to watch. So it was an interesting close game. Enough to be interesting, not boring. Calgary, though, pretty much dominated. They had a punt return for a touchdown, which essentially this was in the second quarter, and it was a 98-yard punt return for a touchdown. That was essentially nearly what sealed the game. Pretty much from that point on, Calgary had the game under their control. Time of possession, Calgary had 44 to 22-50. So if that proves anything, they controlled the football for the majority of the game. They had 66. Bo Levi Mitchell completed 66% of his passes to Harris's 51. So they were better with the passing game. Ottawa also had a turnover on downs, also threw 2 interceptions. Calgary had 16 points off of turnovers. I mean, you can't give up the ball and then have 16 points off turnovers and still expect to win. I mean, if you give up the ball and then have 16 points off turnovers, you're essentially giving away 16 free points. If they didn't have that, it would be that would be nearly a tied game, just like the previous Grey Cup. I mean, I'm not saying anything anyone who watches the show listens to this wouldn't know, because you would be a diehard. So I'm saying obvious things now. They were equal on 2 and outs. Everything else was pretty much the same, which made that why it was still an interesting game. But just those turnovers off points, the 16 points off turnovers, it killed the Ottawa Red Blacks, which that really turned out to be the turning point of the game was too many turnovers. 2 interceptions and 2 fumble loss and 1 turnover on downs. That's 5 turnovers. You can't compete in any league with 5 turnovers. That's just not possible. And I think mostly that difficulty came from the temperatures. Calgary plays in a much harsher, colder conditions more often than what Ottawa does. Ottawa is in the eastern part of Canada, sometimes more mild weather than the midwestern part of Canada, which is very, very cold weather all the time. Well, not all the time, but like in the winter, it gets that cold. So I think some of the players might have been a little bit more used to that type of cold weather, and they have more experience in that stadium. They were playing in the Saskatchewan Roughriders Stadium this year for the Grey Cup, and Calgary has more experience because they play Saskatchewan more often than the Ottawa Red Blacks do. And the Western teams this year obviously were just it was the stronger side of the conference, with BC coming over as a crossover team for the West to the East. It was just by far the stronger conference, so they faced harder competition throughout the year. It just makes sense. Overall, it was an entertaining game. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Calgary and Ottawa do in the off season. I'm very interested in seeing some of the things that come up in the off season, some of the how the Alliance of American Football League possibly changes how the off season of Canadian football works, because more players might be playing in the Alliance of American Football League that would possibly have gone on to the CFL. And that's going to be an interesting way to see how it might change, with Alliance starting in February and ending before May. That's about the time training camps for the CFL will start coming up. I'm not sure if a player would possibly go straight from a season of Alliance of American Football and then even be able to sign with the CFL, or if they can't sign with the CFL, like would they just sit out? Like, can a player play Alliance of American Football League and then an 18-game regular season with the Canadian Football League? I highly doubt that's going to be possible. So that's going to put more competition for good players. And it's going to, this offseason for the Canadian Football League is going to be very interesting. As for the new team that might be coming into the CFL, obviously they're not going to make it this offseason. They did announce that the team is going to be named the Schooners, which I don't really care about what the team name is going to be called, but I'm very happy to find out, very happy that it's going to add more equality. That's not really the word I'm trying to say. Even out the two sides. So there'll be a 5-team East and a 5-team West. It's going to be much more even. We probably won't need a crossover at that point, but I would like to keep a crossover, because what if the East is a lot worse than the West? I'd rather have a better team come and like either, or vice versa, one team from one side going over to compete on the other side of the bracket, because that would be a more entertaining football game each week and more entertaining. So I kind of like the idea of the crossover, and I hope they keep that when the Schooners come in 2 seasons. Other than that, that's pretty much all I got to say about the CFL. Now moving on to tomorrow night, CBS Sports Network. They're gonna do their quarterback protect and pick draft. If you're listening to this before, you can hear my thoughts on it. If not, you can listen to this posthumously. I'll probably talk about this next week, my thoughts after. It's tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. So adjust that to whatever time zone you're in on CBS Sports Network. That's November 27th. So the way it's going to work essentially is they're going to go through the round. The first round, you either are going to protect a player or pick a player. And they're going to go in this order: San Diego, then Birmingham, then Arizona, then Orlando, then Atlanta, then Salt Lake, Memphis, and San Antonio. Now, they didn't announce how they chose this order. But honestly, I don't really think that matters because the first round is the protect round. So as long as you already have a quarterback on your roster and you like him, you can go with that. So I don't think the draft order in that respect is that important in terms of going first and picking a player, because most people are gonna. I think most of the teams will protect their favorite quarterback on the roster. I really do. So let me go through some of the eligible quarterbacks. There's over 50. I'm not going to be able to. Most of them I don't even know who they are, but quite a few of them I do know who they are, and some of these names will probably be fairly standard and known for anyone that would download or listen to this podcast. So first up, I'm going to be a little biased because I am from Atlanta, so I got my Falcons 5K shirt on right now. So Aaron Murray, he's on the Atlanta Legends team, former Georgia quarterback. Backup in Kansas City. He was a draft pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's on Atlanta. I do think the Atlanta Legends will protect him. Now, one of my thoughts on that is with Michael Vick being the offensive coordinator, I don't know how much control Michael Vick is going to have over how the offense is ran. And I'm not sure what style of offense he'll use. I think he'll probably use a more pro-style offense that he used to play with Dan Reeves with the Falcons, because that's more what I think Brad Childress, the head coach, likes. But I don't know, with the fact that Michael Vick is a very mobile quarterback, would he want to go with a more mobile quarterback as his quarterback in the offense? I don't know who in the Legends front office or coaching staff makes that decision on what style of offense they are going to run. Are they going to go more mobile? Are they going to go more pro? If they go more pro, Aaron Murray is a perfect pick, but he's not really super mobile. At least he wasn't very mobile when he played for Georgia. And being a Georgia fan, I remember him playing. He's not a particularly mobile quarterback. He's not a running quarterback, especially not like Michael Vick. But who's like Michael Vick? Hardly anybody. Maybe the new quarterback for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, he might be just like Vic, but he's still early yet. Another player that is very well known, Blake Sims, was from Alabama. I don't think he'll be picked up. Christian Hackenberg, he will be picked up. He is not allocated to a team yet. I do believe he will be picked up. I'm not sure who will pick him up. I think it might be one of the earlier picks in the second round. I think most of the teams will protect a quarterback in the first round. So maybe somewhere like San Diego, Arizona, or Birmingham or Arizona might pick up Hackenberg because he's not actually he's one of the few people aren't allocated. Scott Tolzien also unallocated, so he might go to a West Coast team because he was with the San Francisco 49ers. He also, if I remember correctly, he went to Michigan, so he might go up. There's no team really up in that area of the country, so but maybe like Utah or something like that. He might be something like in that area. Zach Mettenberger, former Tennessee Titans quarterback. I really do think Memphis in the first round is going to protect him because he's already has, so people are going to remember him. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing because he didn't really light up with the Tennessee Titans quite as well as like how Mariota is doing right now with the Tennessee Titans, which right now they're currently down in Monday Night Football, but Mariota has done more with the Titans than Mettenberger did. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a good or a bad thing in the long term for the Alliance of American Football League if you keep a player that played in the NFL team that's very close to it. Like I know the Tennessee Titans aren't in Memphis, but they're close to Memphis. I don't know if keeping a player that didn't do so well with the NFL is going to be a good or a bad thing. Will people look at, oh, okay, this guy didn't do well with the NFL team, but now he's in this second level of football. Should we continue to cheer for him when he didn't do anything for the pro team? I'm not sure how that's going to be affected. If maybe it's a better idea for someone like Mettenberger to move to like a Western team or just some team out of the Tennessee area. And that's the way the Alliance of American Football League is going to want to divide their players is based off where they went to college or based off where they last played in the NFL or Canadian Football League. I'm not sure how that's going to work out when they're taking players that haven't done as well in the NFL, whether it's a good idea to keep them in the city in terms of fan engagement. Now, on this side of keeping them in cities that they're used to, like if they played for let's just keep using Zach Mettenberger, he has a house in like at least close to Memphis already. So he wouldn't have to pay for travel or something or buy a new house in another city that he only will live in for 6 months or rent an apartment for 6 months during training camp in the season. That lowers the cost for the player to make it easier to attract players. I get it from that respect, but I'm not sure how from fan engagement if fans will engage with players when they've already lost faith in them when they've played in on the NFL level. That's kind of my thoughts for that. BJ Daniels, former Texans and Seattle Seahawks backup. He's currently allocated to Orlando. Stephen Morris, Philadelphia Eagles Colts backup. He's also allocated to Orlando. I'm not sure what might happen with him, which one of those two Orlando might actually keep. Josh Johnson right now is allocated to San Diego. He's a former Tampa Bay starter and backup for 8 different NFL teams. However, Josh Johnson, he's the one quarterback that I do think he might have a chance of if San Diego, they do have the first protect pick. I don't know what they're doing in terms of rules for trading. He'd be the one that most people, I think, would be interested in, especially Atlanta, because Josh Johnson is kind of more mobile than Aaron Murray. And he does have quite a bit of NFL experience, but I do think that San Diego will protect that. Josh Johnson is probably not leaving the San Diego fleet. So those are the ones that are really sticking out to me. Other than that, guys, if you want to get in contact with me, I'm going to end the show here. You can get in on the Instagram, Alternate Football Podcast. You can email questions, comments, concerns, anything to alternatefootball.podcast@gmail.com. Just send a message there. I would love to have like a question and answer segment at the end of these episodes. So far, I haven't gotten any bites on that yet, but if you want to start getting in on a conversation each week, if you're downloading this on iTunes, thank you for a download. I would love for you to give me drop me an email, question, comment. I would love to get more discussion going on and really make like this podcast a way of watching Alliance football or arena football and really support these other leagues and just get more discussion out there, because right now they don't have enough discussion on them. So yeah, just drop an email, question, comment, concern, anything to alternatefootball.podcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram, Alternate Football Podcast. I'll see you every Monday, 9:30. I plan on doing this year-round, talking about this. It's going to get a little bit slower here, but I want to try to find more topics up until the kickoff of the Alliance of American Football. I plan on not talking about the NFL that much because they get enough coverage as it is. So if you have anything that you want me to cover or talk about over the CFL offseason leading up to the Alliance of American Football League kickoff coming in February, just let me know, and I would love to talk about it. Maybe have some of you fans on as guests. Just let me know. Thank you, and have a good night.